Ever wonder why some planted aquariums look perfect on the first day, then slowly fall apart before the first month is over? The water turns cloudy, the plants melt, the glass grows green spots, the fish hide, the shrimp stop grazing, and the beginner standing in front of the tank thinks they did everything right, because the setup looked beautiful when the water first went in. But planted tanks do not fail because they are missing beauty. They fail because the invisible system underneath the beauty was never allowed to form. In this video, I want to walk you through why your first planted tank can fail in 30 days, how each mistake quietly builds on the next one, and how to set up a tank that becomes more stable with time instead of more fragile every week. The biggest misunderstanding beginners have is thinking an aquarium begins when the tank looks finished. You add the substrate, place the stones, wedge in the driftwood, plant the greenery, fill it with water, switch on the light, and suddenly it looks like a real aquascape. But biologically, that tank has barely started. It may look complete to you, but to shrimp, fish, plants, and bacteria, it is an empty house with no foundation. There is not enough biofilm. There are not enough beneficial bacteria. The plants have not rooted. The filter has not matured. The water has not proven that it can stay stable. So when livestock are added too early, the tank is expected to support life before it has learned how. That is why the first 30 days matter so much. Most beginner failures are not one dramatic mistake. They are a chain reaction. A tank is set up too small, with too much light, too little plant mass, unstable substrate, untreated or poorly prepared water, a filter that has not matured, and livestock added before the system is ready. Each decision may look harmless on its own. Together, they create a tank that looks nice for a few days, then collapses as soon as biology catches up. Let us start with the tank itself, because size is the first trap. Many beginners choose the smallest aquarium possible because it feels safer, cheaper, and easier. A tiny tank looks less intimidating. It uses less substrate. It needs less water. It fits on a desk. But small tanks are not easier to keep stable. They are easier to disturb. In a larger aquarium, waste, temperature changes, and water chemistry shifts are diluted across more volume. In a tiny aquarium, every mistake is concentrated. A pinch of extra food matters more. A little evaporation matters more. A small temperature swing matters more. Even moving a rock or doing a rough water change can shake the whole system. This does not mean small tanks cannot work. They can be beautiful, but they demand more patience and consistency than beginners expect. For a first planted tank, especially if you want shrimp, a slightly larger aquarium is usually more forgiving. A 10-gallon tank gives you more stability than a tiny cube. A 20-gallon long gives you even more room for plants, flow, and error. Beginners often think bigger tanks are harder because they look more serious, but in practice, more water gives the ecosystem more breathing room. Small tanks are cheaper to buy. Larger tanks are easier to keep alive. The second mistake starts at the bottom with substrate. Substrate is not just decoration. It affects plant roots, beneficial bacteria, nutrient storage, and sometimes water chemistry. A clean layer of sand or fine gravel can be excellent for a beginner because it is inert, simple, and predictable. It does not constantly change the water. It gives plants a place to anchor and bacteria a place to live. If you use root tabs under heavy root feeders, even a simple substrate can grow plenty of beginner plants. Active aquasoil is different. It can be powerful, especially for planted aquariums. It feeds roots, softens water, and can help create the conditions many plants enjoy. But aquasoil also releases nutrients early. In the first few weeks, that nutrient release can fuel algae, cloudiness, and unstable water if the tank is not managed carefully. Beginners often see aquasoil in professional aquascapes and assume it is the magic ingredient. It is not magic, it is a tool. Used well, it can help a tank explode with plant growth. Used carelessly, it can overload a new aquarium before the plants and bacteria are ready to use those nutrients. One safe approach is to keep nutrient-rich soil contained. Some aquascapers place aquasoil or root tabs inside mesh bags under a cap of sand or gravel. That way, plant roots can still reach nutrients, but the soil is less likely to mix through the entire tank during planting and maintenance. It also makes the tank easier to control later. The goal is not to copy the most expensive substrate system you see online. The goal is to choose a bottom layer that matches your experience and the animals you plan to keep. Then there is the layout. A planted tank can fail because the hardscape looks good but is not stable. Heavy stones placed directly on glass can create pressure points, especially if you keep moving them while designing. A plastic grid under the hardscape can help spread the weight before substrate goes in. Stones should also be placed before the final substrate layer whenever possible, so they rest securely and do not shift later. A rock slide inside a filled aquarium can crack glass, crush plants, or trap livestock. Stability first, beauty second. The type of stone matters too. Some stones slowly raise hardness and pH because they contain minerals that dissolve into the water. That may be fine for hardy shrimp like Neocaridina, but it may be wrong for species that prefer softer, more acidic water. Other stones are more inert and easier to plan around. This is one of those details beginners do not notice until the tank is already running and the numbers will not stay where they expect. The aquarium looks peaceful, but the hardscape is quietly changing the water every day. Driftwood brings its own benefits and surprises. It adds warmth, structure, and surface area for biofilm. It can also release tannins, turning the water amber or tea-colored. That is not automatically bad. In many natural aquariums, tannins make the tank feel calmer and can support a more natural environment. But if you want crystal clear water, you may need to soak or boil the wood before using it. What matters most is understanding that hardscape is not dead decoration. It interacts with the system. It gives bacteria, algae, and micro-life surfaces to colonize. In a shrimp tank, that surface area becomes food. Once the hardscape is in, the plants become the engine. A planted tank should not be treated like a display shelf, where each plant is added only for looks. Plants are living filters. They absorb nutrients, create oxygen during the light period, compete with algae, provide shade, and create grazing surfaces. The fewer plants you start with, the more empty space algae and instability can occupy. Many beginner tanks fail because they are underplanted from day one. There are a few tiny stems in the back, one moss patch, one anubias, and a whole lot of fresh water with nutrients floating around. The light turns on, the plants are not ready, and algae accepts the invitation. A stronger beginner strategy is to plant heavier than you think you need, especially with hardy, fast-growing species. Stem plants like Hygrophila, Limnophila, Rotala, and Ludwigia can help absorb extra nutrients quickly. Floating plants like frogbit, salvinia, or redroot floaters can soften the light and pull nutrients directly from the water column. Epiphytes like Anubias, Java fern, Bucephalandra, and mosses can attach to rock or wood and create surfaces shrimp love to graze. You do not need rare plants. You need reliable plants that can handle a new tank and help stabilize it. Plant placement also matters. Beginners often bury rhizome plants like Anubias and Java fern into the substrate, then wonder why they rot. These plants should be attached to wood or rock with the rhizome exposed. Stem plants should be planted deep enough to stay anchored, often in groups so they create mass instead of looking like scattered sticks. Foreground plants should not be shaded by floaters before they establish. Taller plants belong toward the back, mid-size plants in the middle, and lower plants or mosses toward the front. This layering is not only for beauty. It helps each plant receive light and gives fish and shrimp different zones to explore. Now here is the part that scares beginners. Some plants melt in a new tank, even when you do everything right. Leaves turn transparent, stems look weak, crypts may collapse. Tissue-cultured plants may shrink back. This does not always mean the tank is failing. Many aquarium plants are adjusting from immersed growth to submerged growth, or adapting to new light, water, and nutrients. The mistake is panicking and ripping everything out too early. Remove decaying leaves if they are fouling the tank, but do not keep resetting the aquascape every time a plant looks unhappy. New tanks need calm hands. The filter is another place where beginners misunderstand the goal. A filter is not just a machine that makes water look clean. It is a home for beneficial bacteria. Those bacteria process waste and help protect fish and shrimp from toxic ammonia and nitrite. A sponge filter can be excellent because it provides gentle filtration and a huge grazing surface for shrimp. A hang-on back filter is also useful and easy to maintain. A canister filter can provide stronger flow and more media in larger tanks. The exact type matters less than whether the filter is safe, mature, and appropriate for the livestock. If you keep shrimp, the filter intake must be protected. Baby shrimp can be pulled into unprotected intakes before you ever notice them. A simple pre-filter sponge can prevent that and also create another feeding surface. For filter feeding shrimp like bamboo or vampire shrimp, flow becomes even more important. These shrimp need suspended food particles moving through the water column. If the water is too still, they may start digging in the substrate for food, which is often a sign that the current is not delivering enough to their fans. But if the flow is too strong, fish and shrimp may be stressed, and plants may be blasted around. You want circulation, not a storm. Another beginner trap is trying to make water too sterile. Crystal clear water looks satisfying, but an aquarium is not supposed to be a surgical room. Biofilm, mulm, soft algae, and tiny particles are part of a living system. Shrimp graze on them. Microorganisms live in them. Plants and bacteria interact with them. Of course, rotting food and heavy waste should be removed. But if you scrub every surface spotless, replace filter media too often, vacuum every inch of substrate deeply, and polish the water constantly, you may be removing the very biology that keeps the tank stable. Lighting is where many planted tanks lose the battle before it begins. Beginners buy a bright light because plants need light, then run it for too long because more feels better. But plants can only use light when they also have access to enough nutrients and carbon. When light is too intense or runs too long, algae often responds faster than plants. A new tank with stressed plants, fresh nutrients, and a long lighting schedule is a perfect algae farm. For a beginner low-tech tank, consistency beats intensity. A simple timer is one of the best tools you can use. Start with a shorter, steady schedule. Give the plants a routine. Avoid direct sunlight hitting the glass because that can create sudden algae blooms and temperature shifts. If algae appears in the first month, do not immediately dump in chemicals. Ask what the algae is telling you. Is the light too strong? Is the tank underplanted? Are nutrients building up? Are you overfeeding? Are water changes inconsistent? Algae is not just an enemy, it is feedback. Water preparation is the invisible step that decides whether everything else matters. Tap water may be safe for people, but it often contains chlorine or chloramine, which can harm aquatic life and beneficial bacteria. A good dechlorinator should be used every time untreated tap water enters the tank. This is not optional. Forgetting it once can cause a crash that looks mysterious until you trace it back to the water change. But water preparation goes beyond dechlorinator. You need to understand that a new aquarium must cycle. The nitrogen cycle is the process where beneficial bacteria convert toxic ammonia into nitrite, and then nitrite into nitrate. Ammonia and nitrite should read 0 before livestock are added. Nitrate should stay controlled through plants and water changes. This is why a test kit matters. Without testing, you are guessing. And guessing is how many first tanks fail. The cruel part is that a new tank can look clean while being dangerous. Ammonia is invisible. Nitrite is invisible. A shrimp can be placed into a clear, beautiful aquarium and still be standing inside water that is not ready for it. This is why patience is not just a personality trait in aquariums. It is a survival tool. Let the tank run. Feed the bacteria. Test the water. Watch the plants. Allow biofilm to develop. A planted tank becomes safer as it matures. During the first week, cloudy water is common. It may be dust from the substrate. It may be a bacterial bloom. It may simply be the tank waking up. The beginner mistake is attacking cloudiness too aggressively. They drain too much water, rinse the filter, stir the substrate, add clarifiers, change the light, move the plants, and accidentally make the system more unstable. Sometimes, the best response is controlled patience. Make sure the filter is running, the water was treated, and nothing is rotting. Then, give the tank time. During the second week, algae often appears. Brown diatoms may coat the glass, leaves, or hardscape. Green dust may appear. Threads may start on slow plants. This is not proof that you failed. New tanks commonly go through ugly phases. The mistake is turning the tank into a battlefield. Instead of chasing perfect glass, focus on balance. Reduce excess light. Remove decaying leaves. Add more fast-growing plants if the tank is sparse. Keep water changes gentle and consistent. Feed lightly if livestock are already present, though ideally they are not yet in the tank. Let the filter and plant mass catch up. During the third week, beginners often become impatient. The tank looks better, the water is clearer, the plants may show new growth. This is when people decide it is time to add shrimp or fish. Sometimes it is. Often, it is still early. A tank can look ready before it is biologically mature. For shrimp especially, age matters. They need stable parameters and grazing surfaces. A tank can be cycled, but still too clean, too new, and too empty of natural food. This is why shrimp often disappear in brand new tanks, even when the water tests look acceptable. They were not just exposed to unstable water. They were placed into a system with no buffet. By the fourth week, the tank should be moving toward balance, but only if the first 3 weeks were handled calmly. The filter has had time to seed. Plants have started adapting. Biofilm is forming on wood, stones, leaves, and glass. The water has gone through its early mood swings. This is the moment when livestock can be added more safely, not all at once, but slowly. A few fish first, or a small group of shrimp once parameters are stable and food sources are present. Stocking slowly gives the bacteria time to grow with the bioload. Dumping in a full community immediately can overwhelm the tank. Overfeeding is one of the fastest ways to undo all of this. Food that is not eaten becomes waste. Waste becomes ammonia. Ammonia stresses livestock and feeds instability. Beginners often feed because they care, but fish and shrimp do not need as much as we imagine. Shrimp graze constantly on surfaces. Fish can handle light feeding. In a new tank, every extra pinch matters. Feed less than you want to, observe what is eaten, and remove leftovers if necessary. A hungry-looking fish is often just an opportunistic fish. A polluted tank is a real problem. Overcleaning is the opposite mistake with the same result. Some beginners see detritus and panic. They vacuum every corner, scrub every rock, scrape every panel, rinse the filter under tap water, replace the media, and polish the tank until it looks new again. Unfortunately, looking new is exactly the problem. The tank becomes biologically young again. Beneficial bacteria live on surfaces. Biofilm forms on surfaces. Shrimp food grows on surfaces. You can clean the front glass so you can enjoy the tank. You can remove obvious waste. You can rinse filter media gently in old aquarium water when flow slows down. But do not erase the ecosystem you are trying to build. Sudden changes can also break a young aquarium. Large water changes with different temperature or chemistry can shock fish and shrimp. Rearranging the aquascape after livestock are added can release trapped debris, disturb roots, and stress animals. Switching lights, fertilizers, filters, or water sources all at once makes it impossible to know what caused the next problem. The tank needs consistency. Same water source, same dechlorinator, Same lighting schedule, same maintenance rhythm. Stable and good enough is better than perfect but changing. There are also simple physical mistakes that crash tanks. A heater gets unplugged. A filter is turned off during maintenance and forgotten. A bucket used for household cleaning is accidentally used for aquarium water. A sponge with soap residue touches the glass. A lid is skipped and an ammonia shrimp climbs out. A filter intake is left uncovered and baby shrimp vanish. These mistakes are not glamorous, but they happen constantly. The fix is boring and effective. Use dedicated aquarium tools. Label buckets. Check equipment after maintenance. Use a thermometer. Cover intakes. Leave airflow at the surface, but use a lid when needed. Good fish keeping is often just good habits repeated. Another part of the first month that beginners underestimate is temperature. A planted tank may not always need a heater, but it does need stability. If the room swings between warm afternoons and cold nights, the aquarium swings too. Fish and shrimp can handle a reasonable range when the change happens slowly, but sudden drops and spikes weaken them. Warmer water also holds less oxygen, so a tank that looks fine during the day can become stressful at night if oxygen is low and surface movement is weak. This is one reason an air stone or gentle surface agitation can be valuable in a low-tech setup. The bubbles themselves are not the real magic. The movement at the surface is what helps gas exchange. A lid can also help more than beginners realize. It reduces evaporation, helps keep temperature steady, and prevents jumping fish or adventurous shrimp from escaping. But the lid should not seal the tank like a jar. The surface still needs gas exchange. A small gap, ventilation, or open area near the back can make a difference. The goal is not to trap the aquarium away from the room. The goal is to protect the tank while still allowing the water surface to breathe. The first month is also when fertilizer decisions can create problems. Many beginners add liquid fertilizer because they want plants to grow faster, then panic when algae grows faster instead. Fertilizer is not bad. Plants need nutrients. But a new tank with fresh substrate, melting leaves, immature roots, and low plant mass may not need heavy dosing yet. Start small. Watch the plants. Look for new growth, not just old leaves. If you keep shrimp, be careful with any product that contains high copper levels. Shrimp do need trace copper biologically, but they are sensitive to excess. The safest approach is to dose lightly, choose shrimp-safe products, and avoid trying to correct every leaf problem with more fertilizer. Water source matters too. Many planted tanks do perfectly well with tap water, as long as it is treated and consistent. The problem is when the water source itself changes or does not match the animals being kept. Some tap water is very hard. Some is soft. Some has high nitrate. Some changes seasonally. Beginners often chase ideal numbers from online care sheets without knowing what their own water naturally does. That creates constant adjustment. For most beginner setups, especially hardy plants and Neocaridina shrimp, consistency matters more than chasing a perfect target. If you use tap water, learn your tap water. If you use reverse osmosis water, remineralize it properly every time. Do not switch back and forth randomly because the tank will feel every change. The way you fill the aquarium on day 1 can also decide how messy the first week becomes. Pouring water directly onto fresh substrate can blast soil into the water column, flatten slopes, uproot plants, and create cloudiness that takes days to settle. A slow fill protects the layout. Place a plastic bag, bowl, tray, or piece of wrap over the substrate and let the water flow onto that surface first. Fill slowly. The tank may still cloud a little, but the aquascape will stay intact. This small step matters because the less you disturb the substrate at the beginning, the less you feel tempted to keep fixing the tank afterward. A beginner planted tank also needs a clear stocking plan before anything living goes in. The tank should not be built first and stocked later with whatever looks nice at the store. Abeta, rasboras, corridoras, shrimp, snails, gouramis, loaches, and tetras may all sound peaceful in isolation, but not every combination works in every size tank. Some fish eat baby shrimp. Some fish need groups. Some fish prefer cooler water. Some need warmer water. Some need open swimming space. Some need flow. Some need calm water. If you design the aquascape without knowing the animals, you may create a tank that looks beautiful but does not match the behavior of the livestock. For shrimp, hiding space is not optional in a community tank. Adult shrimp may survive with small, peaceful fish, but baby shrimp are food for many species. Moss, dense stems, leaf litter, porous rock, and tangled roots from floating plants can give shrimplets a chance. Without cover, a shrimp colony may slowly disappear, even though the adults look fine. Beginners often say their shrimp are not breeding, when the truth is that they are breeding, but nothing young survives long enough to be seen. A planted tank that supports shrimp is not just clean, it is layered, textured, and full of safe surfaces. Snails are often misunderstood in the first month too. Many beginners see bladder snails, ram's horn snails, or pond snails and think the tank is being invaded. But snail explosions are usually not the original problem. They are a signal. Too much food, too much decaying plant matter, or too much available waste allows the population to grow. Snails are not always enemies. They can clean leftover food, graze algae, and help break down organic material. If they multiply too fast, reduce the food source instead of blaming the snails first. A balanced tank can have snails without becoming a snail tank. The same idea applies to algae eaters. Beginners often try to solve algae by buying an animal. They add autosynclus, a mono shrimp, nearite snails, or other cleanup crew species before the tank is ready. But algae eaters do not fix an unbalanced system by themselves. They help manage growth that the system is already close to controlling. If the light is too strong, the tank is overfed, the plants are weak, and nutrients are unstable, no cleanup crew can save it. Worse, some algae eaters need mature tanks with natural grazing surfaces. Add them too early, and they may starve in a tank that still looks clean. Maintenance tools can either protect a young tank or damage it. Dedicated scissors help trim plants cleanly instead of tearing stems. Tweezers help plant without destroying the substrate. A siphon helps remove obvious waste, but it should be used gently in shrimp tanks. A white bucket makes it easier to spot baby shrimp if you accidentally siphon them out. A thermometer helps catch heater problems early. A simple toothbrush or aquarium sponge can clean tight spots without scraping every living surface bare. These tools are not about making maintenance complicated. They help you touch the tank less aggressively. The most dangerous maintenance mindset is perfection. New aquarists want the tank to look finished every day. They want no algae, no melting leaves, no dust, no biofilm, no tannins, no debris, and no snails. But nature does not look like a showroom. A healthy aquarium has soft edges. A little algae on the side glass can feed shrimp. A little mulm under the plants can support microorganisms. A piece of leaf litter can become a grazing station. The front glass can be clean for viewing, but the whole tank does not need to be sterile. Once you accept that, maintenance becomes calmer and the tank becomes healthier. There is also an emotional pattern that causes crashes. A beginner sees one problem and makes 5 changes. The water is cloudy, so they change more water. Then they clean the filter. Then they reduce the light. Then they add a chemical. Then they move the plants. Then they add bottled bacteria. Now the tank has changed so much that it cannot stabilize. The better habit is to change one thing at a time when possible. Observe. Give the tank a few days. Aquariums respond slowly because they are biological systems, not machines. If you keep turning every knob, the tank never gets a chance to show you what helped. When you finally add livestock, acclimation should be gentle. Temperature should match. Water chemistry should not swing suddenly. Shrimp especially appreciate slow adjustment. But acclimation cannot save animals from a tank that is not ready. A perfect drip acclimation into an immature aquarium still ends badly. Think of acclimation as the final bridge, not the foundation. The foundation is everything that happened in the weeks before. The cycle, the plants, the biofilm, the stable temperature, the prepared water, and the quiet patience. A good first stocking should feel almost too small. That is how you know you are giving the system time to adjust. Add a modest group, then watch. Are fish breathing normally? Are shrimp grazing? Are snails active? Are plants still producing new growth? Are ammonia and nitrite still zero after feeding begins? If the answer is yes, you can slowly build from there. If the tank reacts badly, stop adding more and solve the imbalance first. Stocking slowly feels boring, but boring is exactly what you want in the first month. Exciting changes are often stressful changes. Now, let us talk about the planted tank most beginners imagine. They want a lush aquascape with clear water, healthy shrimp, peaceful fish, clean glass, and plants growing without constant work. That tank is possible, but it does not come from rushing. It comes from building layers of stability. The tank size gives you water volume. The substrate supports roots without creating chaos. The hardscape provides structure and surface area. The plants absorb nutrients. The filter houses bacteria. The light drives growth without overpowering the system. The water is treated and tested. The stocking happens slowly. Maintenance protects the biology instead of destroying it. Here is the best tip most beginners skip. Do not think of the first 30 days as waiting time. Think of them as feeding time for the ecosystem. Before shrimp or fish arrive, your tank still needs to be alive. Let biofilm grow. Add botanicals like a clean, dried leaf if it fits your setup. Use mature filter media from a healthy tank if you have access to it. Add plants early, not later. Give bacteria a reason to establish. Let surfaces become seasoned. When you finally add shrimp, they should not enter a sterile glass box. They should enter a tiny forest, already covered in invisible food. That is the hidden difference between a tank that survives and a tank that thrives. Expensive equipment can help, but it cannot replace maturity. A beautiful aquascape can attract the eye, but it cannot protect livestock if the biology is missing. A powerful filter can move water, but it cannot instantly create an ecosystem. The first month is not about making the tank look perfect. It is about letting the tank become capable. So if your first planted tank failed in 30 days, it does not mean you are bad at the hobby. It probably means you were taught to focus on the visible parts too early. You were told to buy the tank, buy the light, buy the plants, fill it up, and add life. But the real aquarium is not the glass box. The real aquarium is the relationship between water, plants, bacteria, surfaces, light, and time. Once you understand that, everything changes. Set up the tank with stability in mind. Choose a size that gives you room for error. Use substrate you can control. Secure the hardscape. Plant heavier than you think. Protect the filter intake. Run the light on a timer. Treat the water every time. Test before stocking. Feed lightly. Clean gently. Change things slowly. And above all, respect the first 30 days. That first month is where your aquarium either becomes a living system or a pretty decoration waiting to crash. If you are setting up your first planted tank right now, take it slow. Let the tank mature before you ask it to support fish or shrimp. The reward is worth it. Instead of fighting cloudy water, dying plants, algae outbreaks, and mystery deaths, you get an aquarium that becomes calmer every week. The plants root in, the water clears, the shrimp graze, the fish explore, and the tank finally starts to feel alive. Not because you forced it, but because you gave it time to become an ecosystem. Now I want to hear from you. Did your first planted tank make it past the first month, or did something go wrong before day 30? Was it algae, cloudy water, melting plants, shrimp deaths, or something completely different? Let me know in the comments below, because your mistake might be the exact thing that saves someone else's tank. And if you want to build a planted aquarium that stays stable instead of crashing, check out the next video, where I walk through the beginner setup choices that matter most before you add a single fish or shrimp.